Now here's one I've gotten a few requests to review recently. This one is by Laroche and it's called Drakkar Intense. The original Drakkar was hugely popular, especially back in the day, right? It kind of conveyed that earthy green notion that a lot of these classic powerhouse fragrances had. There's also Drakkar Noir, and that also ended up being very, very popular. I actually have an uncle who wears it religiously. Well, here we have Drakkar Intense by Laroche, a brand new fragrance. I purchased my bottle from Macy's. I'm gonna let you know what I think of this fragrance. Did they put more of a modern twist on it? I'll let you know all of that, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's episode and I give you my thoughts on the brand new 2022 release Drakkar Intense by Laroche, I do want to start things off by saying that if you're a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell icon so you could be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel, and also make sure to click where it says enable all notifications. A lot of my subscribers are saying they're not getting notifications from my videos, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it or if you took something of value from today's episode. Would really mean a lot to me. Now, am I the person who used to wear Drakkar Noir back in the day and I wore it religiously and I loved it, so on and so forth? No. But I did have a lot of other green, fir, pine, oak moss, and patchouli fragrances that I was a huge fan of. And this actually has a lot of green ingredients in here, in addition to some aromatic ingredients like rosemary and lavender, so on and so forth. Even a little bit of clary sage and some astringent juniper is introduced into the mix as well. Now, the green fragrances that I wore are Pierre Cardin, I wore Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, and I also wore Woods by Abercrombie & Fitch. And as a matter of fact, this fragrance kind of reminded me of that. I did see online people were comparing it to Azzaro Pour Homme Intense, which I think was released in 2015, composed by Olivier Pichot. So this fragrance does kind of harken back to some of the classics, but with the clary sage in here, are they putting more of a modern twist on it? I'm going to give you my in-depth thoughts on the smell. Let's take a quick look at the presentation. So as you would expect, this fragrance definitely alludes to the original Drakkar, or perhaps even Drakkar Noir. It definitely has that classy, herbal, aromatic, slightly spicy, green, earthy, woodsy thing happening in here. And when you look at the note breakdown, really, it has a little bit of everything. It has the rosemary, it has the juniper, it has the patchouli, the oak moss. It has so many of these sort of green characteristics. And look, when we think of powerhouse fragrances from the late 70s and 80s, we think of Polo Green, we think of Drakkar Noir, we think of Pierre Cardin Pour Homme, we think of all of these, you know, Versace L'Homme, we think of these fragrances, right? And this fragrance is definitely along those terms, if you will, but the clary sage definitely modernizes it a bit. So here's the thing, are you going to smell the rosemary and the lavender and the patchouli and the oak moss and all of these other green ingredients, perhaps even a little bit of wormwood in the opening? Yes, 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 and yes. You are going to smell all of those ingredients, and it definitely is fit for a gentleman, especially if you grew up in those generations and you said to yourself, you know what, I want something that kind of pays homage to the person I was and the person that I've evolved from, then that's amazing, right? I think people who love the original Drakkar or even Drakkar Noir will also fall in love with Drakkar Intense. Now, I think the only miscommunication or the misappropriation here is with the Intense designation. I think in comparison to the way that some of the original Laroche fragrances smelled, this isn't very intense. I think it's a nice fragrance, and I think it has a specific clientele that it's catering towards, but I don't think it's going to be intense, especially given the fact that when you go back to the pre-formulation bottles back when they were released, those were intense, right? So to say that this is intense might be viewed by some as a slap in the face. Now, I do think that if it were called, you know, Drakkar O or Drakkar Moderne or something, you know, like a fancy name, I think that that would have been a little bit more sensible. I think people would have smelled it and been like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a modern twist on a classic, of course. So I do think that there's a little bit of misappropriation there, as I mentioned, but I think it smells nice. I think it smells very nice. I just think that if you pitch it to a 20-something-year-old, he's not immediately going to gravitate towards it because it definitely has elements from some of its predecessors, which I think is amazing. I'm very happy that Guy Laroche is doing that because it pays homage to where they started and where they came from. And it's also not in the market of deceiving consumers, which I think is important. I think if you're going to put the Drakkar name on something, yo, it better smell like the original Drakkar. And I think this brand is definitely sensitive and empathetic to that. So I applaud them for having that emotional intelligence to be like, you know what, we're not going to deceive our consumers. We want them to, you know, get an honest product, and we don't want them to purchase it, especially blindly, only to get something that's completely different from what they were familiar with. So at the end of the day, definitely smells like one of the Drakkar fragrances. Definitely gives off that vibe. There have been a lot of comparisons as well online to Drakkar Noir, which I also own, and I've owned it for a number of years now, albeit I've never, you know, worn it growing up or anything like that. But it does smell like a modern twist on Drakkar. Intense, not so much. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, well, it's not unique. It is a flanker, and they did take it in more of a modern direction with that sclarine molecule / clary sage, which is great. And I think the wormwood gives it enough of a quirkiness in the opening alongside with just a tiny touch of citrus that makes it really appealing upon initial spray. So it's not the most unique fragrance, but again, it's a flanker, so it is forgiven. In terms of the longevity, you're going to get about 6 hours on your skin. Again, intense wear. So 6 hours. Projection is great for the first 45 minutes of application, irradiated within an arm's length. Right around the 3.5 hour mark, it became an elbow's length scent. And then right around, I would say, the 6 hour mark, it became a skin scent. So not the greatest longevity, but it's also not the most expensive fragrance on the market, right? So you can afford to reapply at lunchtime or something like that, which I do find myself doing on a regular basis. I usually take the bottle with me. I put it in my laptop bag or, you know, whenever I'm traveling. In terms of the versatility, I think it will definitely cater to an older crowd, especially a crowd that has a certain level of familiarity with the original Drakkar or even Drakkar Noir. I do think that this one is more on the formal side of things. Because of the price tag, you can wear it casually. I think this one can be worn comfortably in every season except for the summer, and from a traditional vantage point, it is masculine leaning, so keep that in mind. And in terms of the presentation, really cheap cap, really cheap box, although I do like kind of the lustrous look to the label here on the front, and I do like the color of the liquid here, but it's all artificial coloring. It's not because of the high quality raw materials or anything like that. My final verdict on this fragrance is it's a nice fragrance. It definitely is going to be nostalgic for a lot of people. It's very accurate to some of the older releases from the brand, albeit a little neutered, but I think it's a pleasant scent that will cater to a specific clientele. Try it for yourself to see what you think of it and if you like it, and I'm hoping you do. I always hope that people enjoy and love the fragrances that they purchase and sample, but again, scent is subjective. You might not love it. I didn't particularly love it, but I really hope that you do. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell so you could be notified whenever I do release new fragrance videos, and give this video a thumbs up if you took something of value or if you learned something today. Thank you for watching. Love you all. See you tomorrow. Bye.